I was thinking, oh, like, I've done it with job. I personally haven't done it with a relationship, but I've done it with jobs where I'm like, I've quit a job, and sort of a few weeks later when I've been struggling to get another one, I go, oh, do you know what, I don't like having no money, actually. Do you know what, oh, was it really that bad? Hi guys, how are we? For those of you new here, I'm a psychology student trained to be a therapist, so on this channel we talk about positivity, mindset, well-being, mental health and all things like that. So if that sounds of interest, stick around. Now, I don't know about you, but personally, I couldn't probably speak in any detail or remember a time in my life that has been particularly bad. I don't think I could look back and talk about sort of any deep emotional pain that I've been in or anything like that, or times where I was really, really sad and wanted to give up or anything like that. Now, that is not because I have lived a life of sunshine and rainbows, far from it. I personally think it's far more to do with the fact that, so far, everything's basically turned out okay. Like, I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm not homeless, like, life hasn't gone majorly wrong. And I think that can explain a lot of our behaviour, because there have been points, certainly in my life, where not that I could describe it like I said, but I do remember times, as in actual memories, where I was very down, or I did want to give up or drop out of uni or quit my job or anything like that. But because those situations all turned out okay, it can sometimes be really, really difficult to get yourself back to where we were. This is called hindsight bias, and like I said, I think it explains quite a lot of our behaviour. Some people will say this is about how our brain protects us from painful memories, and there is a certain side to that as well, but it's not only good things that we remember. Sometimes if a situation ends badly, we remember the bad things as well, and I'll talk about that later. But this is what I mean about hindsight bias. A lot of our memories are tarnished, or coloured should we say, by how the situation came out. One really common thing that I'm sure a lot of you either experienced yourself or seen your friends experience, it explains why people often go back to really bad relationships when they're bored, because they have this thing of, now they're not in the relationship, they can't actually remember how bad it was, and they're sat at home and they're bored and they're like, oh, I kind of miss them, and actually, do you know what, it would be nice to be back. I think things weren't that bad, and they sort of have this fear, they start justifying it, oh, maybe I did move too soon, maybe I was being harsh, maybe everything will be okay. And they go back to these relationships that when they were in them, they were absolutely miserable, but as soon as you were out of it, because things did turn out all right, you didn't die, you're not homeless normally, whatever it is, people sort of go, oh, like, yeah, I can actually put up with that. Another one that a lot of like, personally, that I know I've had, which I was talking about a minute ago, is like assignments at university, or maybe projects at work, where I've been doing assignments going, I genuinely might have to drop out of uni. I can't do this. My brain cannot get my head around this. It's not that I'm not going to get a good grade. I actually think I might not even be able to submit anything. And in the end, quite often, those are the assignments that I've actually done quite well on, because I've just gone, oh, do you know what? I don't know what's right, so I'm just going to give it a go, see what happens, and I don't overthink it. This wouldn't be my channel if I didn't put it into a sporting analogy as well. And something that you often see, I've been watching a lot of rugby, the World Cup's on at the moment, and something that we often see, they talk about hindsight bias, is how challenges or tackles or whatever are punished, basically. And two players can do the exact same thing, but if one player breaks the skin and the other player bleeds and the other one doesn't, they're punished completely differently. Some people in football throw in awful tackles, but because the other person gets out of the way or just gets very lucky and doesn't get too badly injured, they don't get a punishment for it. Likewise, some people have done completely innocuous challenges completely unintentionally and broken someone's leg and been sent off for it. We look back on things completely different depending on how they come out. And like I said, this isn't just good things. I think a massive one that people like to use as an example, when things go badly, people just like completely step away. If you think of car crashes, if you think of people that have a car accident, especially very early in their time of driving, some people never drive again. Some people have an accident when they're in their maybe even early 20s, and they just never drive again, because their memory of driving is so tarnished by the outcome of what happened, and they start to look at it and go, well, yeah, look, that could happen every time I get in the car. Their hindsight bias, they completely forget the thousands of car journeys they made that were completely fine. Same way people who look at sort of like ferries sinking or planes crashing on the news, they go, oh look, that could happen every time. I really remember that story. I'm never going to fly. When in reality, tens of thousands of flights, I'm guessing, take off every day and land absolutely no problem. So that's why I wanted to talk specifically about this hindsight bias and the two major things that I took from it that I think we can use to either combat it or use it to our advantage. So the first one that I took from it, and this is more to combat it, and that is journaling. Journaling is absolutely brilliant. I've talked about it loads on this channel. You guys, I'm guessing a lot of you probably do it if this is the kind of YouTube videos that you watch. But the reason journaling is so brilliant is because it allows you to flick back through your life and get yourself back to the mental state where you were on that day, good or bad. And if you are sort of being really honest, I personally, if someone ever got hold of my journal, like they know everything about me, they'd know all my thoughts and everything like that. I am brutally honest in this journal, and that would really help me if I was to look back, for example, and sort of go through and go, if I was thinking, oh, like I've done it with job, I personally haven't done it with a relationship, but I've done it with jobs where I'm like, I've quit a job and sort of a few weeks later when I've been struggling to get another one, I go, oh, do you know what, I don't like having no money actually. Do you know what, was it really that bad? Because I can't. Whereas if I'd sort of kept a journal and sort of been writing my feelings on those days that I'd been coming home from work, or just been praying that for whatever reason work was cancelled or I didn't have to go in, or I was just praying my boss wasn't in because I just hated him that much, sort of thing. If you had those written down, you can sort of check back in with yourself and go, yeah, do you know what, I do actually really remember that. And that's why when, this is a bit of a weird tangent, but bear with me. A UK politician recently brought out his diaries of when he was going through the pandemic and everything like that, and he was our health secretary. And it only came out sort of after he released them that he didn't take these notes during. He basically just sat there and tried to remember everything that happened, which is pretty horrific because, like, you can't do it. We've just talked about how you can't do that. And the incredible what I was going to go and say is the incredible diaries that you can read are the ones of the people who sort of, these politicians that actually journaled or diaried before bed every night during sort of these major crises and what was going through their head when they didn't know how it was going to turn out. The second part that I want to talk about, that this is more of a way you can use it to your advantage, and that is positive visualization. Now, I'm not a huge sort of law of attraction kind of person. I think it's a bit too woo-woo for me. Like, I'm all for spirituality, but that's a bit much. But personally, one thing I would say that's really good in terms of visualization is if when you're having problems, when you're having stresses, when you're going through things or whatever it is, sit down, take a breath, and if you just go, would you be stressing like this if you were sat here 5 years from now knowing it turned out okay? Would it because a lot of the time it would completely change how you view things. And the reason for that is very few problems are end of the world problems. Like I said, my example with my assignment, if I could have had Tom from 6 months in the future going, by the way, you handed that assignment in fine and got 72, I wasted weeks of stress for something that never needed to be stressed about. Whereas if I just got on with it, it probably would have been, well, it would have been fine because I did get on with it and everything turned out okay. A lot of problems only have the value that you give them. And there's a lot of people who sort of say, oh, like, if it doesn't matter in 5 years, don't stress about it. Screw that. I would say if it's not going to matter like an hour from now, why are you worried about it? Like, people that go absolutely mad when they're in traffic or miss the train or whatever or something like that, like, you literally can't change it. It's not good. Your life is not going to detrimentally change because you were 5 minutes late for a meeting or because you missed the train. As much as I'm someone who hates being late, like, you're not going to die. Now, this doesn't mean that you can just amble through life and not doing any work, just going, oh, it's fine, everything will turn out okay. You have to make it turn out okay. But the point of positive visualization or positive thinking, if you want to call it that, is if you go into something thinking about how everything can go wrong and I could do all this work and it could all go, yeah, that is, you are just stressing yourself out. You are raising your cortisol levels for no reason. You're just going to bring on a heart attack. That is not how you need to look at things if you want to succeed. Yes, you may fail. Yes, things may not work out. But be honest with yourself. How many problems that you've had in your life are actually like end of the road, end of the world problems, where if the worst should happen, that's it, it's all over, life isn't worth living? Because in reality, that's probably not many. Thank you for making it all the way to the end. I do appreciate you guys who stick around. If you did find any of it useful, please do consider subscribing, liking, comment any other thoughts you have below, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care guys.